Clark,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What comes to mind when you look at this? I don't even know if the camera can see properly what we're looking at, but
Nah, there's a sunset over here. I believe I have some footage to show that off, but I don't know. When I look at that, I think of, if you look at there's like rain clouds over here.
and then sunlight
If you
over
think
here.
about Noah's Ark, maybe.
Yeah.
We're on a boat.
We are on a boat.
It's not just a ferry; it's a cruise ferry.
That kind of ties into what I was thinking about, I guess. One of the most amazing things I think about sitting on a boat like this is when there's no land around and you can just look around, and as far as the eye can see, there's nothing there. I mean, right now, like, we can see other boats and there's a couple on the horizon.
Yeah.
But when you truly look, you can't see anything. And I guess Noah must have felt the same, like, feeling that I get when I look out. It's almost like an endless expanse. That's what it feels like. You can almost forget about what land is and what it looks like when you're just stuck in this, like, expanse like this. It's almost like being in space.
Yeah, right now we're like an hour away from where we're supposed to be. Actually, we're going that way, aren't we?
Oh my god.
That means that storm's probably going to hit us.
Well, I mean, all the wind is blowing that way, so the storm's going that way too.
But like you were saying, yes. But unlike Noah, because we have to, what is it? Like we're about to be to our location, but Noah, it says in the Bible that he wasn't even able to see land for like 40 years. I think it was more than that, actually.
40 years?
Something.
I thought it was days.
I don't think it's days. I think it says something years.
Well, we'll have to look that up later. I think that'd be really interesting to find out.
That would be really interesting.
I am kind of, not appalled, but like astounded by the idea of staying out at sea, completely reliant upon the blessing of God for 40 years. Like, that just sounds amazing. I mean, almost terrifying. Not because you don't trust in God.
No.
But just because of the idea of completely trusting. You know? We've had that conversation before. Like, what does it look like to really give up your trust so that you can trust in God? And part of it would be this, you know? Like, we're on a boat with amenities, of course. Like, obviously, they have meals, they have drinks. Like, if you need a place to take a nap, you can go take a nap. They have chairs. Like, you're really not in need of anything.
Right.
But let's say that this boat was struggling and had nothing, and we were here, and there was something out there, or God specifically was the one keeping us sustained.
Right.
That's just a crazy idea to think about. It's a lot of brain work for me, you know?
Yeah. Man, it is. To think that, yeah, that's all I gotta say. I was gonna say something, but I don't have anything else to say.
Well, you know, I talk a lot about, like, some of my favorite books of the Bible. One of my favorite books of the Bible is the book of Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes 3, I think it's verse 11, but I'm not entirely sure, talks about how God, like, placed eternity into our hearts. And I always use that for, like, different things. Like, I always apply it to different situations.
Right.
But I don't know, sometimes I feel like I can feel it, you know? Like, the eternity that God has placed in our hearts.
Yeah.
And it's a mental thing, but it's also a spiritual thing. Like, you know that your soul isn't going to stay here, you know? The reminder that we have a place somewhere else is kind of an astounding idea to work with, because from this specific point of view, we can only see so far around us. It's honestly just a couple of miles. Like, to be the farthest you can really see is when you look into the sky, and that's at night. So you can see stars, obviously. But if you look around on the horizon, you can really only see like 10, maybe 15 miles. And that's like a stretch, you know?
Yeah.
the vast expanse of what we have here on Earth is amazing. It's incredible. How do you impact that? We're talking a lot this week about, like, what does the global impact look like with mustard seed faith?
Right.
And that's just like, that's a big idea, but it's a little bit easier to consider when we're out here on the ocean as compared to in, like, our conference room, because we're seeing the expanse instead of one small idea.
Right. Yeah.
You have loved on this Bible, Clark.
Yeah. It's been crushed. It's been, like, folded back.
Dude, it has been loved.
Yeah.
That is the key word. Ecclesiastes 3:11. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, yet so that he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to end. I was right. I love the book of Ecclesiastes. Especially 3. 3 through 11 is pretty great. And 1 through 8, it talks about all the different things that have been established in time.
Yeah.
For a reason. Like a time to be born, a time to die, time to plant, time to pluck, stuff like that.
Time to pluck. Wow.
And then directly after that, it says, what gain has the worker from his toil? I have seen the business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with.
Yeah.
He has made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he has put eternity into man's heart, so he cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to end.
Right.
I love that. Like, a lot of people think that we're just toiling, you know? And obviously, he's called a preacher, but everybody knows, well, not knows, but everybody assumes that it's King Solomon.
Who is the wisest guy on earth?
Yeah.
Besides Jesus.
Besides Jesus.
Yes.
He talks, that's basically what he's talking about the whole time. It's like he's toiling. Yeah. And all of it points back to God. And he's asking himself, like, what do my actions mean in this moment? And I think as a leader, like, we're looking at this from a leadership perspective. As a leader, this is a really great thing to consider. Your actions mean something.
Yeah.
We were hearing about people, she was asking us, she was like, would you invest in an idea, even if it took 25 years for that idea to come to fruition? If you had no success for 25 years, would you stick with it? No, not necessarily knowing, but trusting in the fact that God has a plan for you at some point. Right. That your toil is not worthless. God has made everything in its time, and we work towards the goal that he has for us, right? It's boggling to the brain that you could not see the work of God for such a vast expanse of time. We were talking about Noah earlier. Could have been 40 years. Noah could have been sitting on that boat for 40 years, not knowing if he would ever see land in his lifetime. Yeah. What, I guess, leadership aspect do you see from this? It takes a lot of work to, like, look at something random and try to find leadership in it. But we've been talking about a lot of different things just in the past day. So if you had to apply all of this that you see right here, not what we've seen, but what we have right here to what we have had in the past day, what would you say?
Definitely is. I don't know. I would say something about like God's provision. Yeah. Like we see, like he's provided for us to be on this boat, like we were talking about earlier. Like we have necessities, like you were talking about. Yeah. Again, like you were talking about, like we have necessities that we don't really need. Yeah. Like if we were just stuck on this boat and they said, no food, no drink, this is what you get. Yeah. Then we'll be fine. I mean, we'll be starving and thirsty, but we'll be fine.
But we take a lot of things for granted. Yeah. I've been chowing down, bro. I have been big backing my way through this whole trip.
Yeah, we got back from dinner, so it's like...
No, I seriously, but whenever I eat like that, I also realize, like, I didn't need that much, you know?
That's true.
If we really, like, if we relied only on the provision of God, and God gave us only what we needed, what would our portions look like? Yeah. They wouldn't be as big. That's the, like, That's the glutton in me, to be honest. And I realized, like, it really is, though, but that's because the food was, like, it was pretty good. You know, if I see some good
fish
food,
and chips. Oh,
I mean, today's meal was kind of mid, but, like,
I just like food, so
I love food, yeah. I'm just like,
I don't really have a preference.
Clark and I are the only ones here eating our whole plate. Like,
they were watching the girls like, we hate this.
Dude, they have taken like a bite out of each plate and just
and then
abandoned
Caleb
it.
just like, I get the food and I don't eat it.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting Caleb to be picky. But that's okay. I mean, like, it's okay to be picky. I have lots of people who are picky. Samara is picky. And that's okay, you know? You just get used to it, you know?
Yeah. I can't even, man, like...
It's fun being a not picky person around somebody who's picky. Because if there's ever food, you can just eat their food, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, they're not going to eat it, you know?
I mean, you were pulling off the head off of a shrimp, and then everyone's like...
Well, I mean, you have to take the head off a shrimp. It's made of the same thing that their skin is made out of. You can't just eat it. You gotta pull the head off, pull the tail off, take the skin off, and then you dip it in some sauce and you eat it.
We need to stop thinking about food.
Yeah.
So, like, the necessities we get to have, the provisions that we get to have, are not what we need necessarily, but it's what God gives us. Like, think about this. Like, even all the things that we have, we don't need. Like, we don't need, like, to live in a really good house. We don't need, like, I don't know, like, all the things that we obviously take for granted.
A soft bed, a warm blanket.
Yes.
They're not necessarily required for life, which it is almost a crazy thing to think about, because there are some people who really think that they couldn't live without those things.
Yeah, they wish they had that bed. They wish they had that.
No, I'm talking about the people who do have them, and they think that they couldn't live without them. And then you travel to places like you said, and you realize that they have lived with nothing for their entire lives.
Yeah.
And God is still providing for them.
Yeah.
We read the Bible, and man, some crazy stuff happens in the Bible.
Guys, if you think the Bible is all about, like, if you think it's just mid, you haven't read the Old Testament.
It's such a crazy story. I was reading in Second Kings. Dude, this is like the tail end of King David's life, and it is terrible. It's so bad, like, in an interesting way. You know, like, lots of really bad stuff happens. Like, I'm not gonna go into detail about this, but I'll just say I was reading about King Amnon, or not King Amnon, Prince Amnon, or whatever he is. I can't remember.
Right.
And his relationship with his sister, and it was a whole sinful.
Oh man, I know what story you're talking about. Yes.
But throughout the Bible, people in need are provided for when they call out to God.
Yeah.
I think our leadership quality that we should be trying to learn this week is to be the kind of leader who provides for our people by asking God what the right way should be. Because that's, like, I feel like what we've been talking about this whole time. We talked about, like, what was it? The patron saint of prostitutes, right? I can't remember what her name was. But everybody else told her it was wrong to spend the time around those
even
people.
The church.
Even the church. The church was like, we cannot have prostitutes and brothel members inside of this building.
And yet, what did Jesus say in Matthew 9? Like, I have come to heal not the healthy, but the sick. The sick. The prostitutes are even sick. They are looking for something that satisfies, even if it is a sexual desire.
Yeah.
But I think we overlook. That's another aspect. We overlook, like, people looking like, oh, you're doing that thing. Like, even in today's world, with, like, people love the same sex.
Yeah.
Like, as hard as it is for us Christians to watch that and to listen to it, and we're like, that's not godly, I think we just judge too often. We just judge too harshly. We're like, this guy is an idiot.
Yeah.
This guy does not deserve to be here. But
I think one of the biblical concepts that is talked about a lot
Yeah.
is the idea of your spirit meeting its needs or consuming in a sort of way. If the church offered medicine instead of medicine and food, like spiritually, I mean,
Yes.
then we wouldn't be comparing ourselves to the world as much. Like, medicine comes with truth and grace. But when you offer food as opposed to medicine, it'll satisfy some and it'll not satisfy others. Some people are pickier than other people. And also, some people have allergies. Like, you're not always going to present. You're going to be serving to certain areas at all times.
Right.
Whereas when you present medicine, medicine is meant to heal sicknesses. It's meant to cure diseases. It's meant to fill in the needs of your body, right? So if we spend more of our time focusing on the needs of other people and the kind of person that God knows that they can be, as opposed to the person that we think they are, results would be seen. That was the entire story of the patron saint of prostitutes.
Yeah.
She stuck her neck out, and ultimately her sacrifice was worth it, because it's not like she didn't have sacrifice. She did have sacrifice. She had to pay for every single one of those people that she helped. And it came out of her own money. It came out of her husband's money. And obviously, her husband was probably losing support. She was the pastor's wife.
Right.
You know? And the less support that a pastor has, the less he's making financially. But to place your faith in an idea that you don't know if it's going to work, and fully trust that God is going to do his will in that situation,
Right.
is a crazy leap of faith. It's what we should be doing, but we don't on a daily basis. And what would your life look like if you did that?
Right.
I want you to think about your life personally. What do you, like, I realize we're kind of in the same situation. Like, we've kind of been like in a very steady place recently. Like, we haven't really been doing anything. You've had some amazing growth recently. You've gotten a job. Like, things are moving up. We're on this trip together. That's a big sign of growth. But like, what would surrender put your life into if you really, like, what would you see the end result being for your surrender of your life? Because everybody holds back, and the people who really surrender are the most radical people. Like, everybody has some kind of reservation. Like, even the people in the Bible, if you really read it, you realize that they all had doubts. It's just God overcame them with the strength of his conviction. You know, what would your life look like? And this is hypothetical. What do you think? Like, what kind of changes do you think would happen?
If I were to, like, so the changes that would make in my life.
What do you think would happen? Where do you think you'd be? Because you have a lot of things that you care about right now.
Yeah.
Would those things still be there if you surrendered? Or would God place them in a situation where they could help you more? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's say, like, specifically your ministry. Let's take that exclusively for example.
Yes.
What if you stopped planning messages and, like, Bishop McLaughlin, who came a while ago, what if every time you decided to do a message, you literally just opened your Bible to a random book and a random page and decided to preach a message from that part instead of planning it out for a week in advance before? What would your message look like?
Yeah.
And would it be impactful because God planned that message? Or would it be kind of so-so? You know, you really can't say. But, like, if you had to look at your life and pick out a single aspect of it that you think would be different if there was full surrenderance, what area of your life do you think would be the most different?
Man.
I know these are really hard questions.
Yeah, bro, you're throwing me to the deep water. So, let me think. I don't know. I guess if, like, the example you gave is that if I were to just, like, spew a message just from whatever I just, pulled out of the Bible, I don't think it would be as impactful, because kind of the message has to correlate with what the person is, I don't know, like, and like finding something that really needs to be spoken in today's world.
Well, that's true. But you're thinking about speaking to specific world problems.
Mm-hmm.
What if the message that you spoke was speaking to a person's problem? What if it was on a personal level? You see Pastor Ed talk about it all the time. He asks people. He's like, what's my message for you today? Specifically today. Because it's not always for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people leave church and they're not satisfied. Like, they're like, well, I don't feel like God was talking to me today. And some people leave and like, that message was specifically for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the Spirit. If you opened your Bible to a random book, a random page, and preached a message on that thing, it would speak to somebody. It's God's word.
It would.
But obviously it wouldn't be for everybody. I understand what you're saying, though. Like, the idea that you have to plan to speak to specific things does matter when you're speaking to a congregation. Like, you want to address big subjects. You don't want to give too much grace. You want to speak to the truth of the subject. But what if it was really just a spontaneous? We have spontaneous worship. Spontaneous worship, whatever your heart feels like doing.
Yeah.
You go into it and you express the glory of God through your words, through your music, through your actions.
Yeah.
Our messages can look like that too. I believe so. I'm not prepared for that. I don't think I am. And obviously, I think you could be there. But if you don't feel prepared for that, then that's a very obvious thing, you know? You would know. You would know.
Yes.
But complete surrender.
Yeah.
I keep looking at the sunset. Like, it's almost that idea of freedom. Like, if you watch, this is kind of dumb, but like Pirates of the Caribbean, there are moments where they're just like plowing their way forward into the sunset, right? On an open ocean, completely free. That's your life, you know? We spend all of our time on a boat, and we're going, and the winds and the waves toss us from way to way, or from side to side. But you're still working towards a goal at all times. And sometimes we wander, and that's okay. But in the end, you're going to set a destination because you need provision.
Mm-hmm.
And so, set your life on a rock, right? We don't make roots on the ocean. We make roots in the places that we go. And so if you make your way to Jesus and you make your roots there, you can travel anywhere and you'll always make it back to your destination. Because that's where your provision is at, right?
True.
Life is crazy, man.
It is.
I half expected us to never reach this point, to be 100% honest. I want to say, like, not even a month ago, I was 100% convinced that I might not make it, like, might not be able to pay for this trip, and that you weren't going to at all. And I'd already put a lot of money into it. But the provision of God, you know?
Yeah, I remember a long time ago, I even asked, like, when I was struggling, we were struggling to find out if I could even make the trip. I think I prayed. I'm like, God, do you really want me to go on this trip?
Yeah.
Here we are.
We're here.
There's a reason why God is pushing us into these SLU journeys. There's a reason why we're here.
I don't think we'll ever be able to fully articulate the lesson that God is trying to teach us in each of these trips. But those things stick with you, you know? And it's not the same for me as it is for you. Like, the things that I've learned and the things that you learned are not the same. But we can also speak into each other's life by the things that we've learned. And you definitely have, you know?
Yeah.
It's humility and accepting where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Especially knowing that God was the one who provided for us.
Yeah.
I've only got like $1,500 left to pay for this trip, but I had like at least $1,800 or maybe $2,000 of my trip paid for by people who donated to me. And that was an amazing blessing. Like, it was so much. This trip is so much, but it's 100% worth it. Like, the lesson of God, you have to invest in them.
Yeah, and the lessons we're going to, like, we've only done, like, what, 2 sessions?
2 sessions, yeah.
They've already been really good, and we're not even on, this is just the peak of what we're going to learn.
Not even the peak. We haven't even reached the top yet.
That's true. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking going down, but maybe I would. Maybe I should have said we're at maybe it's the tip of the iceberg. There we go.
The tip of the iceberg.
There you go.
You're right.
Don't mispronounce.
We haven't seen the bulk of it yet.
There we go. We haven't seen the full grasp.
But I'm excited for that. We've
excited.
talked a lot about, like, all the different places we're going.
I'm excited about Paris, bro.
I am excited for Paris.
And Normandy, bro.
Normandy Beach is what I'm most excited for.
Bro, like, the way you, like, said, like, earlier, where, like, man, it's, like, I think you reset, like, when we were at the cathedral, you were like, man, just to think about, like, I didn't think Normandy was going to be that, I mean, it's going to be cool, but I didn't think it was going to be that cool until you said, like, when you call back to when Cain
Killed Abel.
And it said that his blood was crying from the ground.
I've always, ever since I heard the story of D-Day in Normandy Beach, I've always wanted to go. Because I've always felt like you would be able to feel the weight of sacrifice that was spent there, you know? When you talk about Jesus Christ and the sacrifice that he made when he died on the cross,
yeah,
you can feel the weight. Like, obviously, Jesus took the weight. He took the weight, and he took all of it. He took everything, including ours and yours. Like,
yeah,
or mine and yours. But when I think about what Jesus did, I feel the weight of his sacrifice over my life. In a good way. In a good way. The lives that were spent at D-Day, like, they were spent in a good way. Like, it was horrible, but they were spent in a good way. They provided us with freedom in a way that we couldn't have without that sacrifice.
Yeah.
And in Genesis, when it talks about Cain and Abel, when Cain did kill Abel, God was looking for him, and it said that his blood cried out from the ground. And obviously, the souls of the men who died are not here anymore. Nothing stays here.
It's just temporary, yeah.
But in my brain, I will always have the idea that I would be able to feel their blood cry out from the ground. And I don't know if that's true. That's kind of an insane idea. That might not even be theologically correct, but it adds power to the idea of this place in my mind.
It does.
In such a way that I feel spiritually moved by the idea of going. And I'm very excited to go.
Same. So
we went to a lot of places last year, but it was the places where I felt the most weight, the most heaviness, that I felt the most spiritually moved.
Yeah.
Places such as the Holocaust Museum.
Oh my gosh.
Where so many people
just
died.
And
this wasn't even sacrifice. Like, D-Day is sacrifice. Those people were spending their lives for something, for a cause. The Holocaust Museum, man, it was pointless slaughter. Like, that's a different kind of weight.
Yeah, it just showed, like, the evil that Hitler had.
Yeah.
Towards, like, innocent Jews. Like.
And you think about that, like, where does that weight go?
Yeah.
It's different from sacrifice. Like, that specific kind of weight, it rests on everyone. Because it rests on the people who committed the act, and it also rests upon us in remembrance of the people whose lives were taken from them, you know? We aren't able to get those things back. And there's a lot of things in your life that you'll never be able to get back. We spend it wisely. Well, depends on the person. We try. But like the Bible talks a lot about how time is like it's a glimpse. It's a glimpse. You spend time. With every breath, you spend time. And if you aren't using it to glorify God in that unveiled surrender, like we were talking about earlier, are you truly living your life to the fullest?
Mm-hmm.
The evil that was committed in those crimes, like, could have been averted. They had the Bible, you know. It was an option. It was a specific, chosen option to not believe in it and not do those things.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember where it was said. Luke 16. We did a whole message on this. You and I preached that message about Lazarus and the rich man. And the rich man is talking to, what was it, Abraham?
Yeah.
He was talking to Abraham. And he was asking Abraham, he was like, man, I need you to just go and tell my friends, my family about all of this, about God and Jesus and all of this, so that they don't end up where I am. And Abraham says to the rich man, everything that they have, everything they need to discover this for themselves is on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't need me to tell them. Like, that's just, it's pointless. They're going to end up where they're going to end up because they have the option of choosing it. And it's the same for all of us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
My mind is spent thinking about things like this. It is an unending ocean of things to consider, you know?
Yeah. Unending ocean, yeah.
And I've kind of been ranting this whole time. I want to hear you speak. I like I've been You're a man of deep thought. And I love that about you. I tend to think my thoughts outside my body so that I can percolate them like with somebody else. And then I get
like conversation at the dinner table.
Yeah. And then I get around people like you who absorb everything and then take it and then think about it. And I'm like, oh, I've been talking too much.
I mean,
yes, look at that. You guys are
yeah.
recording
Yeah.
the moment.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Can't miss out.
Mm-mm.
You gotta go.
This place is beautiful.
It is.
I feel like such a dad right now.
We have to get back on the coach in a little bit. Anyway.
Yeah, we do.
Because we're not too far from France. I can see it right here.
It's right there.
Dude, we're gonna go to bed at 9. You have to do your school.
Dude, I'm gonna be writing this essay until like freaking midnight, man. We're gonna be 7 hours ahead of when it's. So technically, it's not due until 7 in the morning. But I don't want to stay up until like 5 in the morning when we're gonna be up all day tomorrow. And I also have to message my teacher about that other essay because I got 2, but I'm only gonna be able to complete one of them because I thought I was gonna be able to do it here, but the internet was
the Wi-Fi's horrible.
The Wi-Fi was not working. It was like, oh yeah, it's strong, bro. And I was like, really, bro? And it was like, yeah, bro. And I was like, all right, bro. And so I was trying to use the Wi-Fi.
It's thinking.
And the Wi-Fi was not Wi-Fi.
I think I know where all the Wi-Fi went to because Mariah's like, it works perfectly.
The Wi-Fi was not Wi-Fing. Yeah, it was not.
Wi-Fin? Oh,
it was not Wi-Fing.
I'm gonna use that term later down the line. I'm gonna be like,
the Wi-Fi was not Wi-Fing.
If I ever get married, that is the term I'm gonna use on my wife.
For Wi-Fi or for your wife? The wife is not wifing today, man.
Or that girlfriend's not girlfriending.
You are just not GFing today. I can't with you. No, I wouldn't do that. Samara's
Poor
amazing.
Samara.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Imagine she listens to this.
You better not. You better not. That's awkward to think about. No, it's okay. She can listen to it.
It's okay.
I miss you tons. I know You can't hear me, but no, she's great. She really is.
Yeah.
We've tried to cultivate a relationship that works out of biblical principles,
Yeah.
you know? And that looks different for everybody, but for us, it means that, like, we have a lot of things going on. In both of our families. Like, on my side of the relationship, it's more centered towards me. Like, I have a lot of things going on in my life that I have to focus on. Whereas on her side of it, she has a lot of outside things happening. And we've tried to culture this relationship where I support her and she supports me in such a way where she is my strength and I'm her comfort, if that makes sense. And that's really the only way that I can describe it, because that's how it's been for quite a while. Like, when I'm in need of strength, I can run to her, and even just a little bit of time is enough for me to go back and be at it for another week.
Yeah.
And we do that, like, our comfort, our strength that we pour into each other is founded in our relationship with God. And that's a very, like, that's an impactful idea to think about. Like, I'm very proud of that fact. One, because it helps me know that I made the right choice. And two, because it shows me what my future is going to look like.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, we're going to have struggles. Every single relationship does. You cannot enter into a relationship, even if you think you found the perfect person, and think that you're going to have a perfect relationship, because we've had struggles for ourselves. But when you pursue God as a whole, instead of pursuing God separately or with different ideas in mind, you really can cultivate this relationship where it is a God-blessed, a God-sanctified relationship. He wants you to be in it, you know?
Yeah. It's true.
You reach those things with patience. You've been very patient, Clark. And those things are coming. You just have to realize that the people that you've seen in the past that you thought were, like, right, God is protecting you from the situation that would have happened if you'd entered into those relationships. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
God's protecting your heart so that your heart will be strong for the person that is coming.
Man, that's a book quote. That's a message right there. That's good.
Because Samara and I had scars, you know? And obviously, like, we were able to come together and heal them. But I'm glad that you don't have scars. Not the same kind. In my personal opinion, what I would describe as the things that you've had are stretch marks. Like, you've been stretched.
Yeah.
And it still hurts. It still hurts. But the fulfillment that you'll get from finding a person that God has willed into your life instead of you thinking that it is and praying on God's blessing over it, which are two different things. You can pray for God's blessing and it still not be his idea. It's going to be so much more, how do I explain this? Satisfying for your soul.
Yeah.
A relationship doesn't do things to your body. Like, it might, but ultimately the person is going to be speaking into your soul, and they can either hurt you or love you more than anybody else can, you know?
Yeah.
All right, I don't see rain anytime soon, but what are your ideas on that? Give me your idea. What's your situation look like? And I'm not asking for specifics. I'm talking, like, spiritually. How does it feel for you right now?
That's a very open-ended question. You're like, how does it make you feel?
Well, like, I'm asking about your soul. I know the longing that your soul can have to want those things. I've been there, and I know that aspect of it. I want to hear how you feel in your season of waiting, because I've been in the season of waiting, and that season of waiting kind of ended for me from a very surprising place. That's how I knew it was God, because I didn't think I was ready to be done waiting, and then it happened, you know? So just kind of explain what your outlook on all of this is. Not on me, but you.
I guess the outlook I have is just, I think, definitely in the season of waiting, because yes, I do long for that relationship somehow in the future. And I know God will bring it, even though it's really difficult, because I'm watching all of my friends, I'm watching everybody date, and sometimes I feel alone. I mean, Tristan and I actually are in the same boat.
And I talked to Tristan about that too. Like, I understand the waiting.
Yeah.
But the scars that you haven't gotten from waiting, it is a blessing. It's just a blessing in disguise. It's almost like that leadership aspect that we were talking about earlier. Would you wait 25 years for that idea to come to fruition if you had to? It's not about diving in and trying to force it, because people did. King David did. Obviously, Bathsheba. Bathsheba's a great thing. He saw it, he wanted it, he took it. He did not rely upon God's will for that situation. And he was punished because of it.
Well,
but when you truly invest your time, take Ruth, for example.
Yeah.
Her husband died, and she gets transferred into the care of Boaz, right? It was a long process with scars that took her to get to the place where she could be in her God-given, blessed relationship, right? She was provided for by that man.
Right.
And that's coming for you.
Yeah.
And thank God for the scars that you don't have to get to that point. But the season of waiting is still there. You still have to go to the fields and gather, man. You still have to go gather. But God's going to provide for you in those gatherings. And eventually somebody's going to notice you, and they're going to add more to your plenty.
Man, yeah. I think in this season of waiting, it's definitely teaching me, because as I look at how relationships go, how people in this world take relationships the way that are not godly, I think it really is showing me, man, this is not the kind of relationship I want to be in.
Yeah.
Because there's too many in high school, there's too many in college that, I mean, I'm not trying to judge everyone's relationship, how that is working out for them, but just to see
it's hard to watch.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to watch.
When people jump into things and they watch as that thing that they rush doesn't work out, that kind of hurts me, you know?
Yeah.
I step in a lot of times and I give my advice, but it's almost like I feel almost like a personal aspect to it. It's like almost how I feel Jesus watching his children make mistakes. You just feel bad for them.
Yeah.
You know they could have picked the right thing, but they chose not to, you know? I believe that you're going to make the right decision. And I believe that God's got somebody amazing for you. You know? I found an amazing somebody. But I wasn't looking. You know? You and I talked about it. I used to be so lonely. I really, truly was. And a lot of that came from the scars that I had. I found a hope in my brain, and then I kind of lost that hope. And it was the absence of that truly hurt me. To be 100% honest. That's the simplest way that I could put it without going into detail about everything.
Yeah.
Before I got into that situation, I had a hope and I was waiting. And then I got into that situation and I had hope, and then I lost that hope and I had scars from that. And so
Yeah.
I decided that I was just going to wait. Like, I didn't have to put in effort. I didn't have to try to make things happen, because if it wasn't God, then it wasn't good. If it basically.
Yeah.
And as soon as I changed my mindset to God's time, we've been switching time zones a lot, Clark.
We're about to switch one too.
We're about to do it again as soon as we hit land. But as soon as I flicked the switch so that it was no longer my timing,
Yeah.
that's when he kind of threw Samara at me. And I mean, I was kind of thrown at her too. Like, she wasn't ready for it either. It just happened. And I think that's what's going to happen to you and Tristan too. Like, I'm waiting for him to find somebody who's going to understand that he is a strong man of God, and that he is patiently waiting for the person who is going to fit his soul.
Yeah.
As are you. And those things come in time. And you're ready for them. Like, I would never say that you're not ready for them. I just don't think that God's ready for you to have that thing yet, so that you can learn the lesson.
True.
Patience it's a hard lesson. And you have patience. You've been patient. But you kind of get to a point where it moves from, like, you're like, I've been patient, to, like, come on, God, like, what's happening here? Like, I thought I'd be there by now. Yeah.
Right.
And then God tries to teach you the original lesson, which was patience, understanding that it is his timing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You're going to find love, and it's going to reflect God. And the feeling that you get from that is so satisfying. It's very wholesome, and it's very healing.
Yeah.
And I do. I love Samara a lot, because she speaks to me, or she speaks into me.
Yeah.
You know how Pastor Ed's always talking about how, like, the Holy Spirit kind of sounds like his wife?
Yeah.
I haven't necessarily, like, received an idea from her like that, but the parts of me that are hurting are the parts that she speaks into. And you can only describe that as God.
Yeah.
When your friends do that to you, you describe it as God. You would expect that your relationship would be the same way.
Yeah.
Sometimes God sends people your way so that they can actually understand you. And a relationship is different than a friendship.
Yeah.
They have to know you to love you, you know? It's all about talking to them, finding out who they are, finding out what their relationship with God looks like. What are their ideas? What are their beliefs? What are their favorite things? All of the funny little things too. Like, man, like,
Yeah.
finding out that she hates fish was like one of the funniest things in our entire relationship. Like, I knew it, obviously. Like, she had told me, but, like, one time I went to a meal with Samara, and I was with her family, right? And I ordered, like, fish and chips, and I ate that fish and chips, and afterwards she, like, couldn't even be near me. it was just funny to find out. Like, you find out these little things, and it slowly develops into a friendship. Like, your relationship develops into the closest friendship that you could have.
Yeah.
And it stays that way. When it's like actually a relationship. If you aren't best friends with your partner, I would dare to say that it's not a great relationship, you know? Like, you can love somebody and dislike them, and I would say that that's not, like, a really wholesome relationship for you, you know?
Yeah.
But all of it's supposed to remind you of Jesus. The
Right.
Bible talks about how he is the groom and we are the bride, right?
Yeah.
That relationship that you have, it's a triangle.
Yeah.
And everything that you do here points this direction. He wants to feed and sustain both of you. You have to feed and sustain each other. And both of you have to point each other towards God.
Yeah.
And you can't do it if you don't invest your life in that book right there.
Yep.
Which I'm proud of you for loving that Bible. It's so hard. My Bible does not look like that. I love my Bible and I read my Bible, but I'm also a little bit of a perfectionist, and I'm kind of a neat freak. Not all the time, but like in certain areas. And sometimes I see Bibles that are like super beat up, and I have one of two minds. The perfectionist side of me is like, man, you destroyed that Bible. And then like the godly side of me is like, man, they were invested in what Jesus had to say about them.
Yeah.
Those are two very different ideas. I mean, obviously, respect your Bible. Don't destroy it. When I see beat up Bibles, I still kind of get a little bit like, you beat up that Bible. But love on it. Like, you can tell when a Bible's been loved. And you want to love your Bible more than you love anybody else, you know?
Right.
It is the Word of God. John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Yep.
That Bible is God's Word.
Yep.
And we're to love it, you know?
Yeah.
Alrighty, Clark. I don't know how you're gonna end this. I've been talking for a long time.
We're gonna call this the Unscripted podcast.
Honestly, we should do stuff like this. Just don't invite me, because I rant. And especially when I put my sunglasses on. When I put my sunglasses on, I feel cool, and then I'm like, man, I'm in charge of this ship. Like, do what I say.
You don't need me. You don't need Caleb. You don't need Addie.
Actually, I love listening to you, Clark. I really do. You have a very wise heart, and you have amazing things to say. But you wait until the opportune moment that you feel like you have fully understood what it is God's trying to say to you. And that's going to come to fruition.
Oh, yeah.
Because what I can tell you is, I can see that moment building up in your life, and you don't know it yet. You haven't reached the point of fruition yet, but God's taking you there.
Yeah.
And the day's going to come where you're going to get to that place, and you're going to flood the world with so many good things.
Yeah.
And that's going to come out in your relationship, and that's going to come out in your voice.
Yeah.
And I'm also thankful to Caleb, because Caleb, man, he's a ranter just like me. And I love that about him, because it's two kinds of people. I love listening to people like you, and I love listening to people like him.
Yeah.
Because when he's ranting, he's not relying upon his mind so much as God's spirit at the time. And sometimes
you guys say the darndest things.
Sometimes you just gotta listen to the spirit, man. When the spirit tells you that you gotta say this, you gotta say this, you know?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Oh, yeah.